necessarily looking for that.
It is up there off the top.
Have you done this before? Have you done this before?
Not for the school board.
He's done it, you've done it, you've been here before.
I have given opinions, but I don't really sit in this seat. I sit in this seat for the county commission all the time.
Oh, okay.
He's done,
Well, I'm relatively.
what's that for you, Blair?
I do it for the county commission, but I have
Okay.
to the school board.
Wonderful.
I don't think I've ever done it, maybe once in 11 years. You're kidding. So I think I got it in me then.
True.
Okay, we will call the meeting to order. This is the June 16th, 2025 meeting of the Williamson County Board of Education. We will begin our meeting by recording attendance. Members, please record attendance on your devices.
I think we got them all. There are 10 members present.
Thank you. Before we do the pledge and moment of silence, I want to recognize our deputies, Randall Purcell and Perry Dillahay. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. All right, we'll have our pledge led by Jay Galber. It's all about a moment of silence. Thank you. You may be seated. Next, we have our items of particular public interest. It's our public comment period. Tonight, we have two citizens who have signed up to speak. Each of you will have 3 minutes. You can look at the monitor there at the podium to check your time. The two speakers are first Deborah Buffalini, followed by Amy Etchison. Please approach the podium.
Good evening, everybody. Hold on a second. So I'm here to talk about the policy 4.601, and I know you guys have heard from me a lot through emails, and I've been to every meeting since May, having a super fun summer coming here to all the meetings. Learned a lot. So I wanted to address a couple of things about that policy. First, I know that it was originally started to make a retest policy district-wide. So the original purpose of the policy was to make it so that the entire district had the same retesting policy. Now, the wording, has come down now to a paragraph in a different policy. However, it still says a lot of the same things it did in the original policy. We're just looking at it through a different lens. We're now saying that reassessment has many meanings, which it does in the teaching world. It could mean, I might ask you a question. That's a form of assessment. Your answer to my question would be the assessment answer. And in recently speaking to some from central office and some of you, The idea of reassessment has become any of those things can be called reassessment. Well, in reading the policy and rereading the policy, I believe it's called, and I was trying to get it up on my phone and I couldn't do it quick enough. The policy is actually called Student and Parent Guardian Rights to Access Tests and Quizzes. It doesn't say reassessments, it says tests and quizzes. And this is in that particular line. The very first line says establish the rights of students and parent guardians to assess and retain academic assessments. I find this really important because first, I do believe in complete transparency with children and of course parents. I've never held back a test from any parent that's had an issue, and I agree that all teachers should hand back tests to students. However, retain academic assessments, I believe we've all agreed that academic assessment means test. It doesn't mean I'm asking a question, I'm doing an informal assessment, but in the very next sentence, in the very same sentence, if you go to the end, it says, and also to promote opportunities for reteaching and reassessment. Now, when I get to that part, that word reassessment is supposed to mean something different than it does in the first line. And that concerns me. Now, I've been told, and I believe you, I do, that when this comes down the pipe, that it will be told to principals that that's not what it means, that this isn't for retakes and getting new grades, but that it is for the purpose of reteaching and reassessing students in any form or any matter. However, if I can't understand it and in its form now, it could mean anything, and I think that it should be written in such a way that it means exactly what it says. And in order to do that, I think that we're going to have to go back and rewrite this policy, perhaps in a different context altogether, or to take it out of the transparency piece of it.
Thank you. Amy Etchison.
If you could pinpoint one policy change that would improve academic performance and student well-being, would you try it? I'm a county resident and a substitute teacher deeply concerned about the impact of smartphones on students' well-being and learning, and I'd like to ask the board to take a bold but necessary step. Adopt a phone-free school day from bell to bell. This is about policy, I think, 6312. The research is clear and mounting. Smartphones are not just a distraction. Their overuse alters the developmental path of our children's brains. Here are 3 reasons to put them away all day. First, learning. Smartphones undermine focus, memory, and academic performance. A Journal of Educational Psychology study found that students who had phones in the classroom, whether they used them or not, scored significantly lower on tests than students in phone-free environments. And according to a 2024 NEA survey, 90% of NEA members support school policy prohibiting cell phone personal devices during instructional time, with 83% supporting prohibiting their use all day, with certain exceptions. The second reason is real social development. Middle and high school are critical years for building face-to-face communication skills, empathy, and emotional regulation, but when students are glued to screens during lunch and between classes, as we see every day, organic connections just do not happen. A phone-free policy brings back hallway conversations, eye contact, and real friendships. And those are protective factors for mental health and lifelong success. The third reason is mental health. I'm going to have to start talking faster. Rates of anxiety, depression, and loneliness have skyrocketed in teens since 2010, the same time that smartphones and social media became ubiquitous. The CDC says nearly 1 in 3 teen girls seriously considered suicide in 2021, the highest rate ever recorded. A recent study in JAMA Pediatrics shows a direct correlation between screen time and increased mental health struggles in adolescents. So we can't ignore this. Going phone-free during school hours is an immediate, effective way to reduce the digital pressure and allow students to reset. I don't suggest throwing kids into this change blindly. That's why I recommend the board look into resources such as science-based things that Kids' Brains and Screens curriculum, etc. And I have to just wrap it up. So according to a May 2025 article in Education Week, schools that have implemented all-day phone-free policies have found that it's worth it. I've got more research on that. Adopting an all-day phone-free policy is all about freedom. Freedom for students to focus, to feel better, and to grow up in an environment where face-to-face relationships, learning, and mental health flourish. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next item is approval of our agenda for tonight. We will do this by voice vote. Can I get a motion and a second? We have a motion and a second. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Agenda is approved. We will now go on to approval of the consent agenda. I will also entertain a motion and a second, and we'll also do this by voice vote. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approval of the consent agenda say aye. Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda is approved. With that vote, we approve the May 19th, 2025 school board meeting minutes. Approval of the E-Plan applications for FY 2026 to include ESEA grant, Special Education IDEA Part B, Special Education IDEA Preschool, and CTE Carl Perkins. Approval of the Sunset Elementary shade structure. Approval of Sunset Middle exterior LED sign. Approval of Longview Elementary early childhood playground. Approval of the Middle Tennessee easement request at Sunset Elementary and middle schools, and the recommendation for field trip fee requests. We will now move to communications to the board. Superintendent's report, Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I want to thank those of you who are here for coming. We have one principal in the audience, Michelle Murray. Thank you for being here, Fairview Elementary's principal. I think that's all. We are in June. As you all know, as board members, there's still a lot going on in our schools. We're going through our summer school process. We have about 1,650 students in our summer school programs from age kindergarten through 8th grade. Of course, also we're serving many of our students with disabilities this summer through our extended school year program. And there's always something going on our high school campuses as well. So we're very excited about where we are with the summer. Related to that, I did not give you any detailed superintendent's report at the work session. Instead, we gave you some information about the budget. And I know that our chair will share a little bit about where we are with the budget, at least from a scheduling perspective, when he speaks at the board chair's report. With that, with it being June, school year is officially out, even though a lot's still going on. And Corey Mason is here for Carol Birdsong, and he is going to share with us some student and staff spotlights.
That's right. Good evening, everyone. It's my pleasure to present the Student Spotlight Award winners for the month of June. And I'm really excited about these first three because we mentioned them at last month's board meeting, but it had just happened, so we didn't have a chance to celebrate them. But tonight we are. So we are going to begin with the Page High girls lacrosse team. They won the first ever TSSAA Girls Class A Lacrosse State Championship, and their coach is Dana Fasano. Not to be outdone, the Brentwood High girls lacrosse team won the Class 2A Lacrosse State Championship. Their coach is Heather Dobbins. And over on the boys' side, the Nolensville High School boys lacrosse team won the Class 2A Lacrosse State Championship. They are coached by Tom Pettit. Around the same time taking place was our Spring Fling State Championships, and Williamson County Schools had multiple winners there. We are going to begin with Brentwood High School's David Ashburn and Kevin Spivey. They worked together to win the TSSAA Unified Boys Shot Put State Championship. Their coach, Stephen Brock. Also from Brentwood High School, the girls tennis team won the Class 2A tennis team title, and they are coached by Kristen Young. And the duo of Drew Miller and Stephen Smith won the boys Class 2A doubles state championship. Kristen Young is their coach as well. Over at Centennial High School, Larkin Johnson won the girls Class 3A 3,200 meter run. Her coach is Liz McLean and BJ Taylor. And on the boys' side, Gavin Johnson from Centennial won the Class 3A 400-meter run. Liz McLean and BJ Taylor are his coaches. Over at Nolensville High School, the illustrious career of Claire Stegall came to an end in spectacular fashion. She came away with 2 more state championships to add to her collection. She won the 1,600-meter run and the 800-meter run. Her coach there is Kyle Manderfield. The Knights are going to miss her as she moves on. And then at Page High School, Sophia Boutros, Gabby Boutros, Natalie Smith, and Nigella Smith, they won the girls' Class 3A 4x800-meter relay, and their coach there at Page is Marcos Harris. From the middle school side of the world, we have the Page Middle School baseball team. They won the TMSAA Boys Class 2A Baseball State Championship, and those guys are coached by Mike McKibben. At Sunset Middle School, you see here Scotland Zabo. She won the TMSAA Girls Class 2A 1,600-meter run, and her coach there at Sunset is Alicia Arnold. And Woodland Middle School, we have DJ Quarles, Oliver Brown, Christian Eves, and Hayden Prim. Together, they won the boys Class 2A 4x400-meter relay, and they are coached by Andrew Swanson. And last but not least, we have 2 awards. 2 students, actually both from Ravenwood High School, came away with perfect ACT scores on that April exam. So tonight we're going to celebrate Joseph Larson, you see him here, and Samantha Tatalovich, both with that perfect 36. And that completes our Student Spotlight Award winners for the month of June.
Thank you, Corey. Very much thank you filling in for Carol Birdsong. One interesting fact that we just heard about a week ago from TSSAA is they're actually moving track next year to Knoxville for the state championships. You all may recall we had some discussion, at least by email, about the track championships coinciding sometimes with our graduation ceremonies. So we'll be looking at that schedule. If I'm not mistaken, tennis is moving to Chattanooga as well, as they went through some contract structures with some bids from the state. So we'll be doing some review of that in comparing our schedules to the new spring fling schedules that are scheduled for 2026 with that change. With that, Mr. Chair, that is my June report.
All right, thank you.
If I may, Mr. Chair, I take that back. I actually had a question from a board member. I apologize. I wanted to give a little bit of information. I was asked by a board member just a few days ago for an update about where our librarians are with implementing the new policy related to the mature content. And our librarians did meet with as in grade level teams before they left for the summer, finishing up their time. And from a structural standpoint, they're working on software with their checkout system where those books that they put on the list will come up as a notice anytime the books are scanned. They are also meeting as teams to talk about the content and make sure they're consistent across the district based on those grade bands. So they were able to get those processes in place before they left on their 10-month contract for the summer. When they come back, we know that our library coordinator is working on the software piece of that to make sure that's in place for this coming fall. Sorry, I meant to mention that.
Oh, no problem. Any questions or other comments from Mr. Golden? Okay, for the board chair's report, I wanted to follow up on the emails that we've been sending back and forth regarding the special called meeting for the budget. We talked about this on Thursday at the work session, that the county commission will be meeting on Friday to hopefully adopt the county budget, including our budget. And it was previewed to us by Ms. Farmer and Mr. Golden that there would be likely a change in that budget that would require us to come back and amend our budget for fewer expenses related in particular to insurance. I got that right?
That's correct.
So as you might imagine, it's been a little difficult to find a time and a date that works to get a quorum, but it appears that this Friday, June 20th at, we think 5 p.m., might be a little later, but let's say 5 p.m. for the moment, is going to be the time when we can get a quorum. We have to, by law, have 7 people physically at the meeting. The only other date between now and June 30th that actually worked for a quorum is June 30th. My preference would be not to wait until the last day of the fiscal year in case something happened and one or more of those people couldn't make it, and then we would be without a quorum and have to go into the fiscal year without a budget adopted. So my recommendation is going to be that we set that meeting for this Friday, June 20th at 5 p.m. Again, the time could be adjusted slightly. I did not ask where that would be. Can that be in this room?
Yes, sir.
Yes, our plan is to have it here. The county commission's meeting starts at 9 a.m., and we don't know how long that will go.
I do have the county attorney sitting to my right, and he projected that meeting could potentially go past lunch and into the mid-afternoon, but very likely, not holding you to this, Mr. Mosley, but very likely that it would be over in time for us to meet at 5 o'clock. So the budget will be hot off the presses, and we can meet and vote. And for those who can call in remotely or participate remotely under the provisions of that, those guidelines that allow for that, then we will make arrangements for that. Any questions about that? And I do anticipate that's it's literally one vote, so the meeting shouldn't take more than 10 minutes.
If I may, Mr. Chair, there'll actually be the vote for the general purpose budget. We'll have to do the cafeteria budget and our extended child care budget as well. But substantively, we project that the content will be the same.
So I stand corrected. So 3 actual votes, 3 different votes, but all for the same purpose?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So 10, 15 minutes tops, I would think. Mr. Calvert?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a procedural question around the notice. So do we won't have we will have an estimate, right? But if we change that, the actual language might change before we get to our vote.
I'll speak to a little bit, and Mr. Mosley may have something to add. Timing-wise, we need to get our agenda out no less than 2 days before the meeting, 48 hours. So that means our deadline to get the notice out is Wednesday. And from a special called meeting perspective, we can only vote on the content. So we're going to make sure that language addresses whatever may happen from the county commission, because we ultimately don't know their votes. We know what the budget committee has recommended, but we don't know ultimately what the county commission will do. From a timing perspective, if we schedule it for 5 p.m., we can't make it any earlier. Mr. Mosley, anything?
Yeah, once you've given notice, you have to give adequate notice for someone who is interested in the subject matter. So if you say 5 o'clock, you can adjourn past. You could go to 6 or 7 once you've announced it at 5. You can't go earlier. You might have somebody show up later who was wishing to be present and speak, or at least take notice of your action.
But we can just leave it as a general, we're going to vote on an unnamed budget amendment and leave it at that. And we can,
correct.
And then we just need a motion on the floor.
That would give sufficient notice to the public of what the subject matter was. That's all that's required.
Sounds good. I know we just usually give more. We usually have specifics in our public notice, so it's just a change in practice, but a practical one. And so as long as it's compliant.
Yes.
That's correct. And us announcing it tonight was also intentional to make sure that we gave folks as much notice as we possibly could. In addition to that quick notice you all got at the Thursday work session, where the budget committee meeting had just happened, and it actually was still going on at the time our meeting was convened.
So apologies to those who, the few who won't be able to be there on Friday. It just was very difficult to try to find a time that worked. So thank you for your patience with that. That is all I have. Any questions about that meeting? Okay, we can move on to new business. The first item is evaluation of the superintendent. I'll just say a couple things about this. I know at the work session, Ms. Osbrooks went through the summary of the scoring that was done by all of us, the evaluation. That document is in your board packet. I think everyone's had a chance to review that. I believe, I don't remember the exact number, but I want to say the aggregate score, evaluation score came out around 3.3, 3.4, combining the two sections. So we tonight have to vote on that evaluation to approve it and adopt it. I will say, and I'll let Mr. Golden give a little more color on this, he mentioned Thursday night about his contract. Customarily, at least in the past several years, this vote on the evaluation has been accompanied by a contract extension for reasons that he stated, and he can state again tonight. He's not seeking that extension, so we just would have the one vote tonight on the evaluation itself. Mr. Golden, do you want to elaborate?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My contract currently extends to 2028, late June 2028. Tennessee law only allows a superintendent's contract to be a maximum 4 years, and traditionally we've extended at the end of each year from 3 years to 4. Because we have 6 new board members and we've been working together for 9 months, I felt like it was premature to ask to extend the contract beyond what's already 2028 to 2029 to give us some more time to work together. I do anticipate, as I sit here on June 16th, that I will be asking you for a contract extension. I just felt like this wasn't the appropriate time. Let's spend some more time working together. Mr. Chair, on the substantive front related to my evaluation, we did speak about it some at the work session, and I wanted to reiterate some of what I mentioned. The comments that you give me, I take to heart, and I study those comments. The numbers are one thing, but I recognize that each individual may give a number system or a number to a particular element of the evaluation based on their own thoughts and their own take. And so this, again, the substance of the comments are what I focus on. And I did want to mention that we've had a discussion with our principals about some internal focus points for this year. I have made it a point every year for our team to work together to intentionally focus our team from the principals to the core of our teachers to every single staff member in the district on those key points. And I mentioned, I think, that the very first year, one of our focus points was don't go it alone, that we have a lot of really good people in the district who can support folks. And this coming year, the discussion that we had that we're in the process of refining, our focus points for our administrative team and our teachers is, number one, in instruction to grow students with unique learning needs. And I know some of you made comments related to that in the evaluation. Second, safety, building student relationships as the foundation of safety. And third, proactive engagement with parents, staff, and stakeholders in our student-centered decisions. So just felt like it was worth that preview for you, as we'll be working through the latter part of the summer, refining that and really rolling that out in earnest to our faculty and staff this coming year.
All right, thank you for that. All of us obviously submitted our own evaluations in writing, and those are public record, but does anyone have any additional comments you wanted to make tonight on the evaluation process? All right, I don't see any, so we will proceed to a vote. Can I get a motion and a second to adopt the evaluation? Thank you. All right, we will proceed to vote on our devices at this time.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Thank you. The evaluation is adopted. All right, we now go on to 2024-25 school board budget. Several items here. The first of which is approval of the general purpose school fund 06.25 summer learning camps grant in the amount of $4,400,725. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an acceptance of the grant from the state to run our summer school program that's called the Summer Learning Camp at the state level. Do recommend approval for us to receive this grant. The funds can only be used for that summer program.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
All right, you approve. Item 2, approval of the general purpose school fund 06.25 summer learning transportation grant in the amount of $798,171. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The one you just approved was for the instructional cost related to the summer learning camps. This is for transportation. Do recommend approval of this. I will tell you that this is the state funding that we actually project we're not going to spend all of it. We had that comment at the work session. We do have a responsibility to return to the state what we don't spend.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
The grant is approved. Item number 3, approval of the general purpose school fund 06.25 fine arts donation from Gibson in the amount of $49,410. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Gibson Gives is the charitable arm of Gibson Guitars. They have been quite wonderful to us, especially in the most recent years. They do auctions of guitars, and they commit the proceeds of those auctions to our music programs. A couple of years ago, I happened to be at Franklin High School when band camp was going on, and students opened up new instruments from Gibson Gives. Just happened to be there, and it was amazing seeing how excited mellophone players were to open up a brand new mellophone. For what that's worth, and many of you have been to our band marching band programs as well. So thanks to Gibson Gives and for that long-standing and ongoing commitment to our students in our music programs. Do recommend approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? No one's going to ask what a mellophone is?
I chose an obscure instrument for that very purpose.
I'm not asking. But
A mellophone looks like a trumpet with a really huge bell in the front.
Okay.
You may have seen those marching.
taking
It's
your word for it.
the best I can describe, maybe a marching French horn.
It's a, French
Yeah.
horn players march with.
Yeah.
Okay. Take your word for it. All right. We are, provided there's no more discussion, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
All right, that donation is approved. Item number 4, approval of the general purpose school fund 06.25 fine arts donation from Dunaway in the amount of $1,000. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Likewise, this is a gift to our music programs from Roger and Carrie Dunaway. Definitely thank them for that. As I understand it, this is actually an unrestricted gift that doesn't require matching funds. So thank you to the Dunaway family. Do recommend approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
That donation is approved. Item number 5, approval of general purpose school fund 06.25 TCAT donation dual enrollment in the amount of $5,737.23. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a grant donation from TCAT, the Tennessee College of Applied Technology, to fund teachers' salaries for our college and career technical education program. So thank you to TCAT. I do recommend approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? We're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Donation is approved. Item number 6, approval of Central Cafeteria Fund 06.25 commodities increase in the amount of $570,826.12. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is actually a revenue and expense equal entry based on actual commodity purchases over the course of this school year. So do recommend approval to Rachel to, I'm trying to figure out the exact term, to reconcile our budget. Is that the appropriate term? Do recommend approval.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are we ready to vote?
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
That item is approved. Item number 7, approval of 2024-2025 budget adjustments, final year-end intra-category general purpose school funds. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Attached to this document are about 6 printed pages of changes and adjustments to intra-category items in our general purpose school fund budget for end of the year corrections. No new revenue, it's just correcting the lines for the end of the year for accounting purposes. I recommend approval.
Thank you. We have motion and a second, and Mr. Galbraith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to thank Ms. Farmer and her staff for all the work they put in. I mean, these, as a fellow CFO and accounting nerd, you know, getting all this stuff cleaned up and having a clean audit opinion on a year after year after year isn't on accident. So Rachel, you answer all of our questions and get all the accounting done correctly and timely manner. It's not an easy task. She makes it look easy. We see the budgeting process, but the accounting process for 50 plus schools and countless hands that are in it, and to continue to get a clean audit, and just means that we're doing something right. So I just wanted to acknowledge that. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Galbraith, for that. And I want to tell one quick item. The most recent audit finding we had was because we were actually saving money with a purchasing program through pre-bid products. The audit finding came, and the legislature changed the law because they recognized what we were doing was making sense. So it's not just a clean audit finding. It's doing the right thing and convincing folks who can make a change when it's the right thing to do. So thank you, Rachel.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
The item is approved. Item number 8, approval of 2024-2025 budget adjustments, final year-end inter-category central cafeteria. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Likewise, this is the same structure for central cafeteria, making the end-of-year adjustments. Recommend approval.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
The item is approved. Item 9, approval of 2024-2025 budget adjustments, final year-end inter-category extended school program. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Likewise, this third budget that we have, it's the end-of-year intra-category. Recommend approval for that as well.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
The item is approved. The final item in the budget category, or the 2024-25 budget category, is the approval of capital resolution intent to fund 07.25 in the amount of $14,135,800. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is the annual capital request that we took to the county commission after your vote back in March, and that has already actually gone through the county budget committee and has gotten approved 4-0 to take to county government. This resolution is putting that approval into resolution format, which is required to take to the county commission, and we anticipate the county commission will review this in July. Do recommend approval.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Galbraith?
So you said that they would take this up in July. So they will. This isn't on the agenda for the budget committee on on Friday?
That's correct. It
Okay.
is not on the annual agenda for
So
the
there's
operations
no,
budget.
I was just thinking if we needed to potentially add this to the line item of things that we might have to talk about at this special called meeting, but it won't
No.
even be up again.
That's correct. They wait on the capital budget until after the annual budget.
Any further discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Okay, the item is approved. We'll now move to item C, approval of the differentiated pay plan, or pay proposal, I guess it is. Mr. Golden.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The state has us fill out annually a form that we have included in the packet called the 25-26 Differentiated Pay Plan. And you've looked at the detail and you see that. I do want to reference a comment from Ms. Vicki Hall, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, in her memo. And you can see that up on the screen, that largely the differentiated pay plan is to address those hard-to-staff subject areas. We have discussions with the WCEA leadership through our PECA process as we prepare for that. And the estimated cost for that spending is somewhere around $1.3 million for those hard-to-fill. So I do recommend approval of this form so we can submit it to the state.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion and a second? Thank you. Any discussion on this plan? Okay, seeing none, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Okay, the item is approved. We will now move to item D, and these are board policies for first and final reading. We have 3 of those. The first one being policy 4.700, testing programs. I know Ms. Alsbrook isn't here. Mr. Galbraith from Policy Committee, do you want to speak to those?
Sure, that's fine. Yeah, for these first two, 4.700 and 002, are continuation of the change that we made last month. It's just editorial change around the percentage that is used around the TCAP or end of course testing, and then ultimately the TCAP testing. So 4.700 is on page 2, line 3. It talks about end of course tests shall be 15%, 6 to 8 tests shall be 10%, and then 3 to 5 shall not be used for student grades. So we're just making some clarifications.
Okay, thanks for that. So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this policy? All right, seeing none, we're ready to vote. And reminder, this is first and final.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Okay, policy is approved. Item 2, 4.7002, middle school examinations.
Yes, so this 4.7002 is for middle school, and what we did was we pulled this section out of lines 26 through 29, basically put it in the other policy so that we don't speak to the TCAP assessment on the middle school examinations, the weighting.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we're ready to vote. First and final reading.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Policy is approved. Item 3, 6.312, wireless communications. This is a new policy. Mr. Galbraith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This policy is new policy that is the bulk of it is required by state law. Obviously, we had a good bit of discussion at the work session around potential changes other than state law. So we'll note in green. Okay, we see it up there. In green are the changes that were the red were the changes made to the original draft. In green, and the struck blue lines are the changes that were made since the work session. So what was added since the work session is silenced and not used rather than turned off and stored. And then again that's on line 3, and then on lines 4 and 5 for 9 through 12. I think we did change penalties to consequences. Thank you, Julie. And then we updated the school day to I think we struck the on line 23 or improper storage, took that away since we took the storage out of the first line. I don't think we talked about that, but that was a good catch by Dana. And then on line 24, we changed school day from instructional time. So those are all the changes that were made, and we'll have plenty of discussion, I'm sure.
All right, thanks for that review. And can I get a motion in a second to get this policy on the floor? Thank you. All right, any discussion or questions about this policy as presented? Dr. Rees?
So I've been pretty clear that I'm a strong advocate for a true away for the day policy. At the end of the discussion surrounding this policy at the work session, I proposed a compromise of sorts. I believe that we should be leaders in this regard, and the data is very, very clear on phones and wireless devices in schools. There's numerous resources out there, and I just would like to list a few. There's the Phone Free Schools movement. There's everyschool.org. There's Away for the Day. There's Screen Strong. All of these are websites where you can go and look at all the resources they have, all of the data, not to mention all of the books that have been written about the subject, the most notable one being The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. So thank you to our guest speaker for sharing some of the data, but I wanted to share a few more things. All of these resources, you can find the citations and research supporting them. I'm not going to list all the citations, but I just want to highlight a few things. It takes 20 minutes to refocus on learning after phone interruption. There are 44 studies that have found that excessive use of smartphones in class decreases academic performance. Just the presence of turned off phones in classes reduces cognitive abilities. So that goes to that stored piece. 72% of U.S. high school teachers say cell phone distraction is a major problem in the classroom. When it comes to smartphones and friends, which now we're talking about transition periods and lunchtime, teen loneliness doubled between the years 2012 and 2018, right when smartphones became very prevalent. 30% of teens wish they had more friends. 54% of teenagers say social media pulls their attention away from friends who are physically present. It takes 200 hours of spending time together in person to build a solid relationship or friendship. Only 32% of seniors say they gather with friends almost every day. This is down from 44% in 2010. And then we can get into smartphones and mental health. And I'm not going to, belabor the point, but 30% of girls 12 to 17 suffer from major depression. 3 hours per day on social media doubles the risk of depression and anxiety. Self-harm is up 62% from the previous decade. 41% of teens with the highest social media use rate their overall mental health as poor or very poor. So what I proposed at the end of the work session, which we, didn't really discuss, was that we amend this policy and exclude lunchtime. So for K through 12, it would be away for the day. And then we have a grace period for the first semester of next fall. So fall 2025 semester, it's a grace period for implementation. That can be the time when district staff, school staff, the tech use committee work together to figure out what's the best way to implement the policy, what do consequences look like, educating our parent population and students on what the data says and why this is a good move. And so I'm not necessarily going to make that amendment at this time. I wanted to discuss it with everybody here first to see their thoughts on that. I think some of the biggest pushbacks that we get from parents is that they want to be able to contact their kids during the day. And I understand that. I'm guilty of that. But I think that part of that education piece is realizing that high schoolers, teenagers, their prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. And what does the prefrontal cortex do? It helps in weighing consequences, resisting impulses, and making reasonable judgments. It's crucial for academic focus and risk evaluation. So teens are more neurologically prone to distraction, emotional reactivity, and peer influence, making away for the day policies especially relevant and protective. So saying that our teens, our high schoolers, should be able to have those executive functioning skills to be able to easily put away their phones isn't necessarily the case for all teens, maybe for some of them, but I think for a lot of them we're setting them up for failure because of that prefrontal cortex not being fully developed. Not to mention the addiction piece of it that I haven't even really spoken about. So I think we can find alternative ways to allow parents and our teens to contact each other, during the school day or towards the end of the school day. I understand that schedules may change and whatnot, but we were able to do it before cell phones became a thing, and I think we'll be able to figure out a way to do it now. So with that, I'll yield and let somebody else have the floor.
Anyone else, Ms. Edma?
Yeah, I also agree with Away for the Day and everything that's been said by our guest speaker and by Claire. And I would like to ask Dr. Webb if she could speak to what she talked about at our work session about what the principals and the district is learning through the study hall and what they're seeing and kind of what their goals are as well. As far as socialization with students.
Thank you, Ms. Hibna. I'm happy to speak to that. It's been a rich conversation point with our secondary principals, particularly our high school principals, with what they see and have seen over the course of time with our study hall students. One principal shared with us that over time, especially over the last several years, previously, that you would walk down the hallway and you could tell from the activity and the noise coming from a class period which are the academic courses and which are the study hall periods. Over time, what that principal has observed is that now study hall periods are as quiet as an academic period when there may be a test taking place because all of the students are focused on a device, and that there is a minimalized conversation point or communication that's taken place. Those conversations have really started our dialogue in regards to what's healthy for students, similar to what the research has said. We do have a focus in all of our secondary schools and elementary about utilizing time during the day for building community with students, face-to-face community outside of digital communication. And we see that that's something that students crave and need is a sense of community and face-to-face communication. So that is a point of emphasis of building community in all of our buildings. We see We see community building as the foundation of safety in our buildings, where students feel safe, not only with their peers, but with adults in the building, where they can have open dialogue at will. To that, our high school principals do feel that students having their phone away during that study hall period is also beneficial, and that's supported by our group as well.
And then just to end that conversation, since one of the topics of is going to be building student relationships next year, I think this falls in line with that. I think this conversation also speaks to the safety issue that parents and of the district is keenly aware of. When things like that happen around the country, and also it is really the time that kids can have the freedom to talk. They don't really have the freedom to talk during class, but they do have freedom to talk with their peers is at lunchtime. And I want them to have the best opportunity to do that. And that's why I want to advocate for a way for the day or bell to bell. And I really am also thinking about students, besides the safety aspect, but their emotional health and developmentally, the socialization. I think that's really, really important aspect of how we educate our kids. Thank you.
Mr. Galbraith?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to both of you. And Claire, I completely agree. I like this approach. I mean, we were kind of brainstorming on different ways to address this on Thursday. I mean, I was in favor of taking a more excuse me, taking a faster approach on adoption, but I think this kind of combines that, so we can go ahead and make the decision now. We roll out get the feedback from the technology committee and the staff collaboration on how to roll this out, how to make a full communication plan. And I guess my question to Jason, I know you probably won't recommend this, but if this is, as you say, the will of the board, would it be a possibility for any schools, for Dr. Webb to potentially go to any principals and see if anybody wants to adopt this quicker, as a pilot, if you will, just to see what kind of issues there might be. I don't know if there are any principals that are kind of more gung-ho on this as an opportunity for their school or not.
We could definitely have that conversation. We have not had that conversation yet. Philosophically, I like the idea, like we talked about at our work session. I think the likelihood of us getting there to some version of this is high. As I spoke to, how we get there is very important. Because of what we've seen from some of our neighbors, both neighbors in quality of the work and physical neighbors, right? Some benchmarking districts that we work with out of state, plus some locals. And to your comment about you weren't sure if I was going to recommend it, I do think it's important for us to do the prep work. And so when I mentioned philosophically, I like this idea. I think that having some time to prepare is going to be very important. How we prepare, we've actually got a plan in place with our committee. And I know we've had some discussions about that. I actually jotted down the 4 content areas that our technology committee is working on right now. And by the way, that just as a reminder, that committee includes parent representation, school administrator representation, and teacher representation. They were working on 4 main categories. 1, integrating technology in the appropriateness of that in our work. 2nd, screen time. 3rd, personal devices, which is what we're talking about right now. And then 4th, parent resources, because we also know especially based on what the state has given us for computer standards, that students, even at the kindergarten level, come to us largely having already used devices, even multiple hours at a time. So you know how I am. I can't give short answers, but from a short answer perspective, we can have that discussion about that pilot.
Well, I appreciate that, and I guess this, I think so much of the time that needs to be spent on this research, I believe needs to be focused on engagement of the committee and parents, validating the concerns that they have and coming up with solutions and ways that we can address. I know one person, I guess, had already talked to Brian or maybe IT about the ability of parents maybe to communicate through to their students' email as opposed to their cell phone. But I know that might be a technology problem that isn't available for that just because of security concerns. But if there's it's those things, and I believe the longer amount of time that we have to help solve those things and get that plan, rather than waiting until August or September to start having these discussions again, I'd much rather just go ahead and do it now. If we need to make tweaks along the way before January, we have the opportunity to do that. But it's nice to have clear direction from the board, and then let the staff go and kind of act on that and give you plenty of time. So that's my.
Mr. Welch?
So we're all in agreement that, we don't need it during the instructional time. Obviously, I would say I'm not even concerned about parental communication during the classroom either, frankly, if I'm going to be honest. If you need to get a hold of your child and it's that important, then call the main office and they can grab them and get a note, the same as it did when I was a kid. Figuring out what they want from Chick-fil-A after school is not a priority, which is what most of the techs are. It's just, it doesn't need to be pulled away. I used the analogy the other night, and I use it again when I coached soccer or wrestling. The parents coaching from the sideline would drive me bonkers. It's stop. Now's the time they need to be focused on the field and the mat. Stop. And I could see it the same way for the instructor in the classroom. Stop. They need to be focused on math or science or whatever it is at the time. So yeah, I'm fine with all that. Again, my only concern is the law of unintended consequences, and I think what the policy is doing right now is it's restricting it in 95% of the cases. It's restricting during the instructional time, and if we have during lunch or something like that, they can access it. For me, I think it's good to have a beta period. Let's not go all the way the very first. And what we're talking about here is one semester, really. So it's not that big of a deal if we're talking about a grace period. Anyway, let's launch this 95% of the way, year one, evaluate, and year two, we can decide, do we need to go 100% of the way? Do we need to go 97, 98, 99. We didn't need them when we were kids. That's right. But the world is different from when we were kids, and there's tools. We didn't need smart boards when we were kids, and I certainly wouldn't advocate pulling those out of the classroom and going back to chalk. It's technology changes, and I think there are times when there are valid uses of it. And those are going to be fewer and far between, and I don't want the tail to wag the dog here, but I said, why don't we evaluate what those are? We can get the kids used to it, and then if we do want to restrict the rest of the way, we can do it. That said, I don't know, it's not a hill that I am going to die on one way or the other. I think I'm going to vote against the amendment, but if it passes, I'll pass for the policy either way.
Mr. Cash?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think Mr. Welch is exactly right. I think we're all on board here. I'd like to thank Claire for coming in this evening and just reinforcing what we all know is going on. I mean, we have a state law now, and some of the reasons, many of the reasons for that is to teach our children in schools to think for themselves, not be calling mom and dad at home or for every decision, and looking each other in the eye and having a meaningful conversation. I think this is just so important. My concern is I don't think it should go on and on and on. I think Ms. Reeves has got a good plan there. First semester, and any and all changes should be made in that time period, and then we'll have a vote to rewrite this. I don't know if we have to put it in writing right now or there's got to be an amendment, but I'd like to see something that's in writing that says we are going to do this, 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 and this. We're going to let the committee do their thing, and we're going to roll up all this information. But I think there needs to be a time frame to get this done. I know I've listened to, we talked about this at length, and there's reasons for principals wanting a little more time, and the reason for this for more time, and it all makes sense, and timing's everything. But there needs to be a cutoff and a time where we sit down and say, okay, this is going to happen or this is going to happen. So that's all I would add to this conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Wyatt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I support also bell to bell. I have a little bit of hesitation, like was said earlier, about how we get there and what it looks like during lunch. Dr. Webb, I'd love for you to speak to how you feel about our infrastructure around lunch and what it looks like in high school. And just, I think that that's a duty-free period for the teachers. And I listened to the work session, and I wrote down your quote about that it sets the tone if you have a rule change, but students know immediately if you're not able to enforce it. And so I just want to make sure that we are setting definitely our students up for success. Like I said, I definitely support bell to bell, just considering the timeline, but also our teachers, because if it's tricky at one part of the day, I don't want that to be tricky at other parts of the day. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on the lunch support.
Thank you for that. Our concerns from an administrative standpoint are just that. It's the education and time to educate and the time to implement and have structures in place. Lunchtime at the high school level is a much less structured time. We do have teachers who are rotate on and off of their duty-free lunch versus those who are stationed and are part of our supervision staff, but it's a looser supervision. Students are not confined to the cafeteria. We let them go around the building, visit teachers if they need to, those teachers who are on duty to get additional help in a lot of cases, eat in the cafeteria with small groups of friends, where they don't have to necessarily be in the confines of the school cafeteria. So our feedback isn't necessarily in dispute to any of the data that's been presented. In fact, our educators in the building concur that the cell phone use is a distraction and not in support of positive student mental health and the way they interact with one another. It's the time to educate and it's the time to implement that we're asking for. And certainly Dr. Reeves has given a proposal that allows us some time to do so. We just want to make sure that we are educating everyone involved, parents, students, teachers, and that we have time to put a structured plan in place to ensure that if we're saying that something isn't allowed, that we're able to enforce it. And so that does take a little time with just a few weeks before school begins.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to, before we get back around to a second time for speaking, I'm going to recognize myself just for a minute for a comment on this. Speaking just as a board member, not as the chair, but one of the things that I took away from the discussion at the work session on Thursday was I felt like a pretty good consensus that eventually we're going to find ourselves at a bell-to-bell situation. I think it's pretty clear that there's a lot of appetite for that and a lot of evidence to support that. My concern, and I stated it Thursday, was that we created a committee recently, as we all know, and each of us got to, for maybe the first time, each board member got to appoint a parent to that committee for the purpose of studying these kinds of issues. And that committee has already said that cell phone usage was the thing it wanted to take up first. And we have 2 board members who are on that committee. It may be semantics in terms of the timing, in terms of the cadence of how we do this, but I just feel like I would rather not put an affirmative bell-to-bell and affirmatively taking out the lunch option until that committee has had a chance to actually meet and talk about some of these things and give us some feedback. It may be very unlikely that that committee comes back with anything other than bell-to-bell, but in this slight possibility or the slight chance that they do come back with something different, I'd love us to be in a position to amend our policy later to reflect that, if that's the will of the board. So again, it's really not an argument on principle. It's more of a timing issue, and there's also some merit, in my opinion, to allowing there to be an adjustment for parents, students, as you said, Dr. Webb, for staff and faculty, to adjust to what we're adopting tonight. If we adopt what's in front of us as written, it's already a slight move beyond what the state law requires. So I think it's a reasonable exception to allow the lunch period for now. I would be opposed to striking that lunch period in our policy. I think we should codify what's in front of us and then give ourselves some time. I agree with you, Mr. Cash, that it doesn't need to be open-ended or indefinite. We need to think about a reasonable time frame in which that can happen, whether that's the first 9 weeks, whether that's the first semester. But I think we're all putting ourselves out on record here as being in favor of the direction we're going. It's just a matter of as it's been said a couple of times, how we get there and those slight detailed differences that we're talking about. So with that, we'll go back to speakers who've been previously recognized. Ms. Ebma.
Yeah, I think we've had a good discussion similar to Thursday night. And I think I am reading the room, but I would like just to propose that we strike line 5 and part of 6. Students in grades 9 through 12 may use a wireless communication device during the student's lunch period. I'd like to make an amendment and just see what the will of the board is at this time officially.
Okay, that is a proper amendment, proper motion. Is there a second? Is there a second on the, I'm sorry. Okay, so we have a motion. We have a motion on Ms. Hibma's amendment. Do we have a second on the amendment? Okay, we have a second on the amendment. Any discussion on the amendment? Okay, Dr. Reeves.
So with that motion to amend, it does not include any kind of grace period. So, so I wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that was one thing that I really liked on Thursday night is what Claire had mentioned about the grace period. So can I change my amendment?
You can withdraw and restate your amendment.
Okay, then I would like to withdraw and restate it.
So Dr. Reeves, will you withdraw your second on the amendment? Okay. Ms. Hibma.
Okay. Yeah, so I'd like to make an amendment to strike out lines 5, that sentence in lines 5 and 6. Do I need to repeat what it says? Would you like that?
Please.
Okay. Students in grades 9 through 12 may use a wireless communication device during the student's lunch period, and then include language that talks to having a grace period for just the rollout of this program. Would that be sufficient, Claire?
We would need to state the actual language of the.
Okay. I don't have. Wasn't planning on that, but. Okay, okay, let's think about this. Yeah, I don't, Claire, what did you?
Am I allowed to talk?
So, it's going to be awkward, but will you withdraw again
Yes.
and maybe then let's,
Yeah, because
What's your-
I was listening to her, but I don't have anything, in a precise
Sure.
language, because I wasn't planning on doing this, but
yeah, that's
I
fair.
I want to.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Sure, that's fair. Okay, so I have the floor.
Yeah.
So I was still wanting to hear from some more board members before going forward with an amendment. I mean, the last person to really speak was Mr. Brown, not in his capacity as the chair. I was going to call him chair, but and so I guess just to address what you said about the committee, I still think, number one, the committee recognized that due to the law, they recognized that the board needed to bring forth a policy. And in fact, we did hear from several committee members, parents who were appointed to that committee, who emailed us and advocated for an Away for the Day policy and shared resources, some of the same websites that I mentioned tonight. So to your point, I do think that we are moving in that direction. I just land on, I think it's better to rip the Band-Aid, if you will. We know that this is going to be a big transition, and I would rather set the expectation now, give the grace period for implementation, let the committee work with the district staff to figure out what does that away piece look like, not used. I mean, maybe the phone should be stored, given the data on just having a phone present and seeing it can affect focus. So, but those are things that I think the committee and district staff can work on, as well as the communication piece with parents and educating students and parents alike. Superintendent Golden has a leadership team of students that you work with, and maybe they can be leaders on this. Maybe we can have some student ambassadors who lead the way. Again, I want us to be a district that leads on this and doesn't look to other districts to see what they're doing. And so if I come back to, I always try to be very consistent. If I come back to what I, as a board member, prioritize, it's always doing what's best for students and student outcomes and what the data says. And I think it's very clear on all those points. But I haven't heard from everyone to know if, their thoughts on the amendment.
So before we hear from anyone else, no one's seeking recognition yet, but guys, I think we need to clear the board because the amendment was withdrawn, so we're really still on the main motion, technically. I just know it says discussion at the top, motion to amend and second, so those have been withdrawn, so, okay. All right, Mr. Welch, on the main motion?
Yes.
Okay. That's proper motion. Is there any objection to the question? Okay, we have an objection, so we'll vote on the motion for a previous question. Jeff, can we do that by voice vote?
Can? Well, can you explain what the...
Okay, calling the question is essentially, in other words, motion for previous question, which means that cuts off debate and that we proceed directly to a vote on the motion itself. On the policy as written. So we'd be going straight to a vote on the policy as written, but previous question requires a two.
Let me clarify that. I wasn't trying to cut off. I was calling a question on the amendment so that we would vote. There is no.
Well, the amendment had been withdrawn previously, so there was no amendment. We were on the main motion.
Claire's amendment.
She's not made it.
You're right. I'm sorry. Let me withdraw my question.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Motion withdrawn. Okay. So we are back on the main motion. Mr. Cash.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Claire 100%, but should we have something about a timeline? What is the timeline for this committee? Is it a month, 2 months, 3 months?
Well, I'll let Jason get to the details of this, but the committee is, and there's 2 members of the board who are on the committee, so you're welcome to speak on this too.
Right.
The committee is set to meet, I believe, in August or September?
August 12th.
So
is
it's
their next
set to meet in August and again in September, is that correct?
meeting. That's correct.
So, and the first meeting they had, it's my understanding that they moved the cell phone issue to the top of the list for discussion. So presumably then, in those 2 monthly meetings that they have, they would be talking about this issue and potentially coming up with recommendations or suggestions on what we might, as a district, might do.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Dr. Reeves?
Okay, so I think I am just going to make the motion, and if it fails, it fails, and then we'll vote on the policy. So, all right, I do have language. So I move to amend policy 6.312 by replacing 8 with 12 in line 2 and striking the language in lines 3, starting with students in grades 9 through 12 may possess, and ending in line 6 with during the student's lunch period. And then I propose that we add a section titled Implementation and Grace Period, and that section would be worded as follows. To ensure a smooth transition and allow time for community education and adjustment, this policy shall be implemented with a grace period during the fall 2025 semester. During this time, students will receive reminders for policy violations. Full enforcement, including applicable disciplinary consequences, will begin with the spring 2026 semester.
All right, everyone got that? So I think it might be wise to, that is a proper motion, but we need to walk through, and we need a second. Let's walk through do we have a second? All right, we have a second. So let's walk through those point by point so we can all reference the policy document we have in front of us to make sure we're all seeing each change. So your first change was in line 2.
Yes, so the 8 would okay. So in line 2, the 8 would be changed to 12.
Okay.
And then starting on line 3, where it starts with students in grades 9 through 12, moves into line 4. That whole sentence would be stricken, and it goes into line 5. And then it continues, students in grades 9 through 12 may use a wireless communication device during the student's lunch period. That would be stricken as well into line 6.
So everything from the word students in line 3 all the way through
Lunch
period in
Yes.
line 6 would be stricken.
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
keep going.
All right, then I propose inserting a section titled Implementation and Grace Period. So I think that would logically fall after the exceptions section. So basically on line 22 would be the start, Implementation and Grace Period. And then the following would be lines 23 through 26. To ensure a smooth transition and allow time for community education and adjustment, this policy shall be implemented with a grace period during the fall 2025 semester. During this time, students will receive reminders for policy violations. Full enforcement, including applicable disciplinary consequences, will begin with the spring 2026 semester.
Okay, does everyone have clarity on that language?
So starting in January.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, so we're on the floor for discussion of the amendment. Mr. Galbraith.
So, Claire, the question on how that would be implemented would essentially, so the consequences here wouldn't apply, and I just want to make sure that were there any consequences included in the state law that we have to uphold as of July 1?
The short answer is yes. It allows confiscation of the devices by the teacher during that instructional period.
It allows for it, or does it?
That is correct.
So-
It does not require it. That is a remedy.
So my question with regard to implementation with the grace period, because in my mind I was thinking that the policy itself would be active July 1 as written today, but the change from basically the amendment, the change from lunch away from lunch would be the grace period. And so, because today, if we pass the policy as it is, then the consequences, as defined and as implemented in some kind of procedure, to be more specific than this, would actually be applicable on August 1st or July, the next school year, as opposed to if everything is on a full semester implementation, then there's no enforcement of even the instructional time piece. So that's I just wondered if you thought through that.
And Mr. Chair, if I may add a little bit to that, I do have a concern about whether we would truly be implementing and enforcing the portion of the state law that we do have a responsibility to implement with this language, because in instructional time, the rule does apply immediately. My suggestion is have a preface to what you wrote for non-instructional time restrictions at high school, comma. That still
The
allows
implementation piece.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that addresses my question.
If we add that to what you read in the implementation and grace period, because we don't have the authority to have the grace period for instructional time.
Do you amend your motion? Sure. All right, I'll second. I will.
Okay, so hang on a second. So, help me, Jeff. Does she need to withdraw and then restate it with the
Yeah,
amended
that's
language?
incorporated by virtue of her accepting the recommendation and the second accepting it. The motion has been changed by virtue of the maker.
Got it. Okay. So, if you're in agreement, that language is added, the preface that Jason just recited. Okay, so that is the amendment with those additional words. Dr. Johnson.
So again, I think we're all in agreement to bell. I think the way we get there is different. I agree with you, Mr. Brown, around we've created a technology committee and we talk about wanting community input. And if we do this now, we're kind of negating some of what we wanted that committee to do. The second thing is what Dr. Webb talked about at lunch. I mean, I'm not sure how you're going to enforce this. And if we take it out now, I would rather have it now than giving it back because we figure out we can't enforce it, rather than, taking it back and then giving it, like taking it away now and then giving it back to them. So I'm not in favor of the amendment at this time, like I said.
Okay. Dr. Reeves?
I didn't.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, Mr. Welch?
Yeah, I don't want to be a dead horse. I just want to point out, I think we're getting awfully convoluted here over something that's probably 97% of the way there that we all are on board with. And again, as we go down this path, if we decide we do want to ramp it up, we can. We don't even have to wait until next year. We can do a mid-year change when it comes back. The other thing I would say is listen to your staff. They are telling you go fast, but please don't go pedal to the metal. Give us a little bit of time to adjust, and it might be wise to listen to them on that. Just something to consider.
All right, anyone else seek recognition on the amendment? Okay.
If I may make a
Please make a
recommendation.
final comment, yes.
I'm going to spend maybe close to 60 seconds on my recommendation. I'm going to give you the preface. I don't recommend passing this, and I'm going to give you a little bit of reasons why. You all have touched on some of those, that it is important to have the plan in place. But I will say that this amendment mitigates that concern with an implementation period in January. I think we can get there in a better way if we allow the committee to do its work and make recommendations to us. If we have recommendations in August or September, this draft timeline that this amendment has could still be achieved and probably will be achieved without this amendment. So that's honor the committee's work, as a couple of you spoke about. They may give us some insight that we don't know right now because they're doing some work. Third thing I want to mention is our policy. And we touched on this a little bit at the work session. And the language says, on matters of unusual urgency, by an affirmative vote of a majority of the members of the board may waive the second reading and take immediate action to adopt new or revised policies. And then the final sentence says the board may also vote to waive the second reading of a proposed amendment to a policy if a policy is considered housekeeping or clerical in nature. What I would submit to you is that the urgent part is making sure that we institutionalize what our legislature has told us to do. We need to have that in place now. And that's why we're recommending this for first and final reading. But with a proposed timetable of implementation for an additional piece in January at our high schools, we can honor that process so that community members can come for second reading, can come and listen and speak at that second period after that second reading here at the board. So for those reasons, because I think we can achieve this taking a different road and still honoring our parent and stakeholder involvement, I don't recommend adoption of this amendment, even though I suspect that ultimately we're going to get there.
All right, thank you. All right, so we're going to move to a vote on the amendment as read earlier. All right, we can proceed to vote.
The vote is 4 yes, 6 no.
Okay, the amendment fails. We're back on the main motion, which is the policy as drafted in your board packet for the evening. Any further discussion on the policy? Okay, seeing none, we will move to a vote on the policy.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Okay, the policy is adopted, and a reminder that is first and final, so this will go into effect July 1 in compliance with state law.
And Mr. Chair, I did want to let you know, we will have a discussion with Mr. Galbraith about policy committee and make sure that we continue this discussion.
And would it be, I think per the other discussion about the technology committee, it might be useful to send around, just as a reminder, the dates of when that committee is meeting, just for the benefit of the rest of the board and the public, so that we remind ourselves of that, and then we stay on point about what they're discussing and any of the feedback we might expect.
Thank you, we'll do that.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bostic.
Just to that point, when it comes to the meeting, I know we are thinking that they're expecting to talk about cell phones and stuff early on, right? Are we going to have any data or recommendations from them at the time, or do we have to wait till the committee is fully done before we're going to get
We do expect to have some data and recommendations early, and Ms. Jenny Lopez is actually leading that committee work. Ms. Lopez, I'm going to ask you to step up if you would and give an answer to Mr. Bostic's question.
We're going to discuss cell phone use at our very first meeting, which is September 12th. I'm sorry.
August 12th.
August 12th. In September, we'll reconvene, and at the end of that meeting, the outcome will be to have a recommendation for the board on cell phone use.
In September.
In September, correct, because we're not going, there are several topics, there are 4 topics, as Superintendent Golden mentioned. However, we're not waiting till the end of those 4 topics to bring you recommendations.
Gotcha.
We're going to bring you our recommendation at the end of each topic. So you'll have a recommendation in September, mid-September, on cell phone use, and then you'll hear from us again when we finish the next topic, and so on and so forth. So you'll be hearing from the committee on each topic as each topic ends. So the idea is to start a topic, finish that topic. Yes, there'll be lots of data that we're bringing to that. All of the data that Dr. Reese mentioned is going to be brought, and we're going to have some discussions on why this is important, and then the committee's going to make a recommendation in September as to what their wishes are on cell phones, how to implement, what the consequences would look like, all of those things I've been writing down so that I have a full list of what it is you want to hear about from that committee.
Gotcha. Do we know from a timing standpoint, will that be before the September board meeting?
I think it'll be right about the same time. We'll have to double check that.
It's right about the same
Yeah.
time. We're meeting on
Well-
Tuesday, so I think we will have something that Tuesday, and it'll be brought to you, so it'll be kind of like
Couple of
last
days
minute.
before the work
Yeah, a
session,
couple, like
maybe.
2 days
Okay,
before the board session.
But I will tell you, one of the comments I made to that committee when they started their work was, we want you to drive this as well. And those of you who were there, you may remember me making a reference, maybe not using those exact words. We're going to make sure we inform the committee of the discussion the board has had these last few weeks, and because that may give them a prompt as well.
Correct, and I will be communicating with the committee prior to that meeting, so they're prepared for that meeting. So I'll give them a synopsis of what the conversation here has been. I'll give them, obviously, our policy as it goes into effect July 1st. So they'll have lots of reading to do before they get to the meeting, so they come prepared to have deeper discussions on what the data says, what the studies, the research says about cell phone use at the schools. So they'll have lots of information they're coming to the meeting with, so we hope to take advantage of those 2-hour meetings to really have deep discussions and then a recommendation to you.
Great,
Yes.
good. And then I would just say, like, from Dr. Webb, if any additional, like, teacher stuff that you have at that point too would be very, very helpful. If we could have it all by that work session would be awesome. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. Mr. Galber?
Lopez answered, I think she answered it after I raised my hand, but I think what I heard her say was that you intend to not only have a recommendation of affirming what we're all kind of moving towards is bell to bell, but I think what I'm particularly interested in is the details on the how and the not the why necessarily, because we're all there, most of us are there on that, but the how in terms of where storage, like the details on that, the implementation, the communication, the consequences, like
Yes.
that's what it's all the details that we don't have time to do here.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I'm really looking for. I'm speaking for me, not the board, but
Yes, what I have is that we're going to have a recommendation on how we implement it. So how we implement it has a lot to do with how we communicate to students, how we communicate to parents. So we'll have the how, like what does that communication look like to students and parents so they understand the why, because I think the why is going to be really important to our community. Why are we doing this? It's not to have one more rule, but it's actually because what research is telling us is that it's best practice, that it's best for students, all the things that we've talked about. And so the how we do it, how we implement it, and then what do those consequences look like? And then one of the bigger issues is how do we store it, right? Because a lot of the conversations we had at the very first meeting was, do we store it in pockets? Is a pocket okay? Is a locker okay? Is a backpack okay? So we had those conversations already, and there was lots of interest in having more conversations on that. So I have shared already lots of research for the committee to look at over the summer, and some of that research does talk about different ways to implement that. But that's definitely going to be a conversation. So when I come back to you, I'll have recommendations on how we implement, when we say store or put away, what does that mean? Because I think we definitely need to define what that looks like, what that is. And then I'll have recommendations also on the implementation in terms of consequences. What do consequences look like? So we'll bring all of that back to you. And of course, those will be recommendations for you to discuss.
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to item E, which are, we have two board policies for second reading. The first of which is 4.601, student and parent / guardian rights to access tests and quizzes. Mr. Galbraith, anything to report out from policy committee?
No, I think we've had adequate discussion at policy several times, and so I appreciate the addition of the language from after the work session, page 2, line 4, to address Ms. Buffalini's issue with the reassessment piece. The language method should be chosen by the teacher or teaching team and may not necessarily lead to grade changes. I think the discussion around this, it definitely started as the primary purpose of the policy was to provide tests and quizzes back. As we were talking about tests and quizzes, wanted to also address how this reassessment was going on. I think my initial draft, which wasn't with staff input, was focused on test corrections because that's the method by which certain schools choose to not codify it, but implement the lack of policy that is today. So this is definitely a better adaptation. And I just want to address the comments that were made. I think just the thought about this, and Dr. Webb can chime in here, but when even the kind of the preamble to this policy, when it talks about retaining the purpose, retaining academic assessments, and then as appropriate promote student learning through reteaching and reassessment, I think that adequately addresses both halves of this policy. And for me, the difference in an assessment and a reassessment is assessment is what we're talking about, the tests and the quizzes. The reassessment, I think it's not necessarily clear. It's easy to I understand how people could read it differently. The way I read it, and I think correctly, is that the reassessment essentially can take many forms, not just retesting. So it's just different uses of the word, I get, but I'm comfortable with the changes that were made, and I will and I think I'll put a motion on the floor. I don't know if I saw a second. So.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second. So any additional discussion on the amendment as presented in your packet? Mr. Bostic.
Yeah, I've gone back and forth on this one a lot, and I appreciate your clarification there, Mr. Galbraith. Thank you. I have major concerns about this paragraph at the end of page 1 into page 2. I know that we have reassessment, and that could mean multiple different things and kind of open into interpretation, but it could mean retesting, and test corrections is listed there as well. And I just have a lot of concerns over what that might do and the impact into teacher autonomy. We also talked about, you know, at the work session stuff at length about student motivation, you know, to try and get things right the first time. And if you, you know, fail a test, you know, what does that mean going forward? And I couldn't in good conscience move forward with this paragraph in here as it is. So I would want to make an amendment to remove this entire language. I believe it's page 1, lines 33 to 37, into page 2, lines 1 through 5.
Okay, so is that, you making that as a formal amendment?
Yes.
Okay, the motion is to amend by striking lines 33, starting in lines 33 on page 1 through line 5 on page 2, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second it.
Okay, I've got Dr. Johnson on the board for a second. So any discussion on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, we will vote on the amendment. Is there anyone unclear about what the amendment would do? Okay. Yeah, sorry.
Mr. Chair, we'll be fine either way. For I'll defer to the will of the board. Well, for the sake of making sure that I actually give a recommendation, because there has the potential for folks to misunderstand the difference between assessment at the top and assessment at the bottom, knowing that this would not change our practice, I do recommend approval of this.
Recommend approval of the stated amendment.
Of the amendment.
Okay. Okay, we will proceed to a vote on the amendment.
The vote is 7 yes, 3 no.
The amendment is adopted. So we are now back on the main motion as amended, which, to be clear, is in the draft you have in front of you is line 1 through 31 on page 1, and then it picks back up at line 7 through the end of the policy. That is the new policy we would be voting on as amended. Mr. Galbraith.
Well, with that stricken, I think you need to amend the lines 3 and 4 to end that sentence at the end of line 3 with to access and retain academic assessments, period, and delete the rest of lines 3 and 4.
So are you making making a motion to amend?
Yeah, I am, just to clarify, to make it, yes.
Okay, so the motion is to amend, further amend, by striking in line 3, ending it with the word assessments, and striking the remainder of that, line 3 and 4. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Any discussion on that amendment? Mr. Golden, any feedback on that?
I recommend approval.
Okay, we will ready to vote on the amendment.
The vote is 9 yes, 1 no.
The amendment is adopted. So the new motion as amended twice is line 1, then line 3 until the word assessments, and then line 6 through 31, and then on page 2, starting again in line 7 through the end. That is the new amended policy that we would be voting on. Any discussion? Mr. Welch.
Yeah, so, I mean, I was fine with the language as it was before the amendment. I was fine with the amendment. Nothing really upset me, but I guess my challenge with it, and I don't want this to come out wrong, please take it at face value, but I'm having trouble really seeing what it substantially changes beyond what we do already. And I know you asked that question, and to be honest, I kind of forget what it is. So it feels a little bit superfluous right now. So if there is something significant in here, I'm open to hearing it and understanding, on board with it. But honestly, I'm just struggling right now to sort of figure out the big why behind the policy if we're already doing it. Again, please take it at face value. It's not, but that's where I'm struggling with it.
Mr. Cash?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree with Mr. Welch 100%. We have worked on this policy for hours and hours. We have had discussions on this for hours. I have 8 grandchildren that go to these schools. At every grade level, if they're failing or if their grades are going down, they're reassessed. Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And I've got them from, well, I've had them from K through 12 for the last 6, 8 years, 10 years. I got them graduating, and this happens at every grade level. And now we feel like we have to create a policy, and the policy looked great. The first one before 2 amendments looked great to me. The verbiage was in there. It's not necessarily to get them a passing grade, but we want to prepare them for the future and find out what the heck's going on. And I don't know, I mean, I guess this is over my head about assessment, reassessment, and all the things that go along with it. But this staff and our teachers have been doing this for years. And now all of a sudden we're eliminating all this stuff. So I'm a no vote. I'll go no all the way to the end. Thank you.
Mr. Galbraith?
So, Eric, I know we're done talking about the reteaching and reassessment piece is out at this point. So now, I just want to clarify. I just want to be able to answer your question. Is it regarding the access to tests and quizzes? Now, like, do you think we're already doing that, and so like we're just restating our actual practice? Because I can speak to that, and Dr. Webb can too. But that's what I'm just wondering what your.
I mean, if that's
Well,
the answer,
hang
that's the answer.
hang on.
No, I just wanted to clarify what the question was before so I could adequately address it. But
Do you want to be, Eric, do you want to be recognized again?
Respond. I think you just did it right there. I get it. Okay.
because
Yeah,
so let
fair-
me.
fair- yeah, no, fair enough. That's.
Well, I guess I'll just clarify
Okay,
just so for.
I'm sorry, just for procedure, we just punch you in if you don't mind.
I am. I'm still at the floor.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
So the goal of this policy, from an access to tests and quizzes perspective, is to do something that hasn't largely been done in recent years, and that is to give students and parents access to their tests and quizzes. And so I think it's done probably differently in different teacher teams in schools, but by and large, I think more tests are withheld than are returned. And I think by this policy, it will by default, except for the exceptions, which are really important, then the default is going to be that students and parents get those tests back, get the feedback, have them available to study is the goal. So, Dr. Webb.
Thank you for the question. So we see this as it's been a solid research-based practice since I entered education 27 years ago. What we've realized through the conversation surrounding this policy is that it could use a point of emphasis. So we plan on emphasizing this best practice regardless of the pass of a board policy today, because it is a best practice to review with students how they perform on an assessment, give them the opportunity to see what they did well on, did not do well on, and communicate ways to grow. To Mr. Cash's point, I would say that this has happened in a lot of classrooms. Does it happen consistently across the district? No, it isn't. It's a healthy point of emphasis for us. And I can speak secondary, and I believe Julie would echo with elementary. We plan on emphasizing this as a research-based best practice unless there's a security reason not to release those test items, which in those cases, of course, we wouldn't.
Dr. Reeves?
Thank you for that, Dr. Webb. I did want to speak to my no vote on the amendment. I felt like we had a lot of conversation about that particular wording, and I was very comfortable with adding the last sentence that spoke to it not leading necessarily to grade changes. So I do think, because Dr. Webb, I think, previously indicated that the application across different schools isn't necessarily uniform, I would like to make a note that we revisit, get an update maybe in your superintendent's report, maybe, I don't know, midway through the school year next year, about that piece of the policy that was removed.
Thank you. That's a good request, Dr. Reeves. I will tell you, like I mentioned before, my recommendation, we are implementing that, and that's our expectation for everyone. Each school and each teacher team is at a different point on the continuum, and it's a constant effort. Even when folks retire and new teachers come in, it takes that work. And to Mr. Cash's point, we have been doing it for years, and everybody continues on that journey. So just to reemphasize, I recommended approval of that because we're going to implement it either way. And we'll make sure that we keep you all informed. And as you know, we continue to talk about what true professional learning community work is with those 4 questions, and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, any further questions or comments on the policy as amended? Does anyone need clarity on what we're finally voting on with the amendments? Okay, I'm going to assume we don't. Mr. Golden, any final recommendation?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to say the same thing I said about the amendment. We're going to implement either way. So whatever the will of the board is, but because I do have a commitment to each of you to make a recommendation, I'm going to say it again. We're going to be fine either way, will of the board, but because of the work that's being done, I certainly recommend approval of this so that we can move forward.
Okay, we are ready to vote on the policy as amended.
The vote is 8 yes, 2 no.
Okay, the policy is adopted. Our final policy on second reading is 6.411, student wellness. Any comments from policy, Mr. Galbraith?
Yes, we're now on second reading of this research of this recess policy that was prompted by state law. We've gone in excess of state law on the elementary side for 45 minutes versus the required 40 minutes. Don't think there are I don't think there are any changes that are except the last change that since our last policy meeting, in green on page 3, there is on line 4, time spent on electronic device shall not be considered physical activity for middle school students. I apologize. That was a change that came out of the work session from Ms. Hibma. But otherwise, this is what came out of policy and we discussed on Thursday night.
All right, thank you for that. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this policy? Okay, we're ready to vote.
Mr. Chair, I do recommend approval because
Apologize.
no problem, this green language is actually consistent with the policy you just passed related to electronic devices.
All right, thank you. All right, we're ready to vote.
The vote is 10 yes, 0 no.
Okay, the policy is adopted, and with that, that comes to the end of our agenda. Thank you for the good discussion. We are adjourned.